Have you ever wondered what would happen if Australia's wildest creatures suddenly appeared in the United States? It sounds like the plot of a blockbuster movie, but let's actually think about it. Kangaroos bouncing through Kansas, koalas climbing California redwoods, and platypuses paddling in the Mississippi River. Sounds kind of cool, right? Well, the reality would be a lot more complicated and honestly, pretty chaotic. Today, we're diving deep into this wild hypothetical scenario to explore the ecological mayhem that would unfold. Let's start with the most famous Aussie icon, the kangaroo. Imagine seeing a mob of red kangaroos, the largest marsupials in the world, hopping across the plains of Texas. They can reach speeds of over 40 miles per hour and cover 30 feet in a single bound. Initially, you might think they'd fit right in. They're herbivores, just like the deer and pronghorn that already roam these areas. But here's the first major problem: competition. Kangaroos are incredibly efficient grazers. Their digestive systems are built for the tough, dry vegetation of the Australian outback. This gives them a huge advantage over Native American herbivores. They could quickly outcompete white-tailed deer, bison, and pronghorn for food, leading to a sharp decline in their populations. Plus, kangaroos have very few natural predators in America. A lone coyote or bobcat would be no match for a large male kangaroo, which can use its powerful legs and sharp claws to defend itself. Only a mountain lion or a pack of wolves might stand a chance, but even then, it's not a guaranteed meal. Without natural checks and balances, the kangaroo population could explode, devastating grasslands and farmlands. Now, let's head to the forests and meet the koala. Everyone loves koalas, right? These fluffy, sleepy marsupials seem harmless, but their entire existence depends on one thing: eucalyptus trees. Koalas have a highly specialized diet and can only eat the leaves of specific eucalyptus species, which are toxic to most other animals. Since there are no native eucalyptus trees in the United States, introducing koalas would be a death sentence for them unless we also introduced their food source. And that opens a whole new can of worms. Eucalyptus trees are notorious for being fast-growing, water-hungry, and highly flammable. They could easily become an invasive species, outcompeting native trees like oaks and pines, altering the entire forest ecosystem. The oils in their leaves would make wildfires, which are already a huge problem in places like California, even more intense and destructive. So, the cute koala paradox is that to save them, we'd have to risk destroying our own forests. All right, let's talk about some of the more intimidating residents of Australia. The saltwater crocodile. These are the largest reptiles on Earth, growing up to 20 feet long. They are apex predators, perfectly adapted to both saltwater and freshwater environments. Now, imagine them in the Florida Everglades. They would immediately come into direct, brutal competition with the American alligator. While alligators are formidable, saltwater crocs are generally larger, more aggressive, and more tolerant of different water conditions. They would likely dominate the ecosystem, preying on everything from fish and birds to deer, wild boar, and yes, even alligators. The delicate balance of the Everglades would be shattered. The presence of these giant predators in rivers, lakes, and coastal areas across the southeastern US would also pose an immense danger to humans. Recreational activities like swimming, boating, and fishing would become life-threatening. And we can't talk about Australian wildlife without mentioning spiders and snakes. Australia is famous for having some of the most venomous creatures on the planet. Let's introduce the Sydney funnelweb spider, whose venom can be lethal to humans in as little as 15 minutes. These spiders like to burrow in cool, moist places, which means they'd be right at home in suburban gardens and backyards across many parts of the US. This would create a widespread public health crisis. Similarly, imagine the inland taipan, the world's most venomous snake, slithering through the deserts of Arizona. Or the eastern brown snake, responsible for the most snake bite fatalities in Australia, showing up in parks and farmlands. Our native snake populations would be in trouble, and our hospitals would be completely unprepared. Antivenom is species-specific, so we would need to produce and distribute massive quantities of new antivenoms, a process that is both complex and incredibly expensive. Now, for a creature that seems straight out of a fantasy novel, the platypus. This semi-aquatic egg-laying mammal with a duckbill and venomous spurs would be a biological marvel anywhere it went. They would likely seek out the slow-moving rivers and streams of the Appalachian Mountains or the Pacific Northwest. Their diet consists of insects, larvae, and freshwater shrimp. They would compete with native species like river otters and raccoons for food. But the bigger question is, could they even survive? Platypuses are incredibly sensitive to water quality and pollution. Many American waterways are far more polluted than their pristine native habitats in eastern Australia. It's highly probable that they would struggle to establish a healthy population and might simply die out. Their unique presence would be a sad and short-lived scientific curiosity. Let's not forget the birds. The laughing kookaburra, with its iconic call that sounds like human laughter, would certainly add a new sound to American forests. As carnivores that eat insects, worms, and even small snakes and rodents, they could potentially help with pest control. But they might also prey on the young of native bird species, upsetting the local avian hierarchy. Then there's the cassowary, often called the world's most dangerous bird. Standing up to 6 feet tall with powerful legs and dagger-like claws. These flightless birds are famously aggressive when threatened. If they were to roam the dense, humid forests of the southeast, they would be a terrifying new hazard for hikers and anyone living near their territory. They are capable of disemboweling a human or a large animal with a single kick. Forget worrying about bears on your camping trip. Now you'd have to worry about a prehistorical-looking bird that sees you as a threat. So, what's the big picture here? The introduction of Australian wildlife into the US would trigger a series of devastating ecological chain reactions. This is a classic example of what happens with invasive species, but on a continental scale. The core problem is that ecosystems are incredibly complex webs of relationships that have evolved over millions of years. Every species has a specific niche, a role it plays. When you drop a new species into that system, especially one without natural predators and with a competitive advantage, it's like throwing a wrench into a finely tuned machine. The new arrivals would outcompete, prey upon, and displace native wildlife, leading to a massive loss of biodiversity. American animals that have never encountered these strange new creatures would have no evolved defenses against them. The economic costs would be astronomical. Agriculture would be hit hard by kangaroo mobs and invasive eucalyptus trees. The healthcare system would be strained by bites and stings from venomous snakes and spiders. The tourism and recreation industries would suffer as people become too scared to enjoy the outdoors. We would have to spend billions of dollars on containment, control, and eradication efforts, which would likely have limited success once the populations are established. This hypothetical scenario is a powerful reminder of why biosecurity is so important. Every country has strict laws to prevent the accidental or intentional introduction of foreign species, and for good reason. The delicate balance of our native ecosystems is precious and fragile. While it's fun to imagine kangaroos in Kansas, the reality would be an environmental nightmare. It highlights the uniqueness of each continent's biodiversity and the importance of protecting it right where it belongs. So let us appreciate Australia's incredible wildlife from a safe distance and focus on preserving our own amazing and sometimes challenging native species. Thanks for watching. If you found this thought experiment interesting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of what ifs. See you next time.